What is up, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs? Welcome to another episode of Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Chris Valenti, and tonight we're going to be doing a deep dive into the rabbit hole for one of the most pivotal inventions in humankind's history. We're talking about airplanes, ladies and gentlemen. See, for 6,000 years, humanity was shackled onto the ground with dreams of flying through the sky like a fucking bird. And in the early 1900s, these two brothers by the name of the Wright brothers ended up creating the world's first airplane, right? And pretty much immediately, generals across the planet were like, hold on a second, I've got an idea. What if we put guns and bombs on these fucking things, maybe a couple of cameras, and we use them to just obliterate, recon, and mow down our enemies? So we're going to do a little deep dive into planes and how it reshaped the history of combat. Before we do, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, donate $7,000 to the channel. Also, we've got merch. If you look down below, there's merch, and we have a link to get 20% off of the Vantage subscription for ground news if you're interested in, this is how I get my news. If you're interested in making your own conclusions, figuring out which bias is, there for each different article, then go ahead and do that. That's what I do. But anyway, let's jump right in and let's do a deep dive into planes. The first thing we're going to start with is the Wright brothers. So we got this right here. See, Orville and Wilbur Wright. These were these American aviation pioneers, right? These are the people who are credited with inventing the fucking airplane. Or it started off with gliders, right? But by 1909, I want to get down to in competing claims here. By 1909, the Wright brothers, they had such a perfect understanding of flight that the U.S. Army started to buy a shitload of these planes, right? And across the planet, different governments and different militaries decided that if we can fly through the sky, we might as well start to use this in war, right? And so the first time that we actually see the use of these planes in combat is during the Italo-Turkish War. Now, this is something that a lot of people probably haven't even fucking heard of because it was a short war, about 11 months. But this was fought right before World War I. Okay? Now, the Italians had been wanting to expand their empire for a very long time. Italy was only, like, the Kingdom of Italy was only unified, really, in, like, the late 1800s, like the 1880s, right? And the Ottoman Empire was, now it says Italo-Turkish War, but remember that the country of Turkey, it was formerly the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire was known as this sick old dying man, right? This sick old man of Europe, this fucking, the Ottoman Empire was so old, and it no longer had a grasp over its different territories, right? They never stood a chance, and so what ended up happening was the first use of reconnaissance planes, and even some bombing planes was done by the Italians, right? The Italians during this war, they deployed the use of cameras to snap pictures from above with their planes, and then they had real-time understanding of the enemy's positions, right? And something that we started to see was the beginning of bombing runs, right? And here's our first bombing run here. The first man ever to do a bombing run was this fucking Italian wop named Giulio Gavotti. And I'm allowed to say wop. That's our fucking word. But Giulio Gavotti, right? He was an Italian lieutenant and pilot who fought in the Italo-Turkish War. And he dropped the world's first aerial bomb from his Taube monoplane on Zara Oasis. Now, I believe he only hit one of those 4 shots. But essentially, this guy, he's in this fucking shitty-ass monoplane. Jesus Christ. He's in this shitty-ass fucking monoplane, and he brings 4 grenades with him, right, in a leather pouch, each the size of a grapefruit. And flying at an altitude of 600 feet, which ain't diddly shit. That's like flying a fucking kite, right? He screws the detonators, tosses each munition over the side. 3 of them land onto the fucking Tahara Oasis, right? 3 of them just land in the fucking dirt. But one of them lands into this military camp at Ain Zara, right? One of them lands into this military camp, baba boom, and it is the first recorded airstrike. Now, think about it, we got fucking atomic bombs, but this fucking guy is the first one to ever throw an explosive from a fucking plane. So we've already got reconnaissance planes. Now we've got the first idea of explosives being thrown from above, which if you don't have any counter to that, you're absolutely fucked, son. And that's what ended up happening to the Turks or the Ottomans, in the area like Libya and what you would now consider Turkey. But during World War One, we started to see a lot more of aerial combat, right? And the first use of this was in the Battle of Mons, right? Battle of Mons is the first major action of the British Expeditionary Force in World War One. But more importantly are the air operations, right? See, in the Battle of Mons, it's the first time that we start to see, like, increased use of this. Oh, by the way, after that bombing run, the fucking Giulio Gavotti guy, after that bombing run in 1899, everybody signed a treaty. They were like, no more fucking bombs being thrown from planes unless it's heavier than air, which now the planes are. But German air operations, right? In World War One, German air reconnaissance detect British troops advancing from Lake Château de Maubeuge, and on the 22nd of August, from Maubeuge to Mons, as other sources identified halting places, right? So we start to see in the early hours of World War One, these planes are being used for reconnaissance to try and track enemy movement. And something that we start to see is that the planes that are capable of fighting in dogfights, right? The dogfights start to happen more and more often, right? And we start to see an inception of these bombers. So the first real bomber, other than a guy just throwing fucking grenades out of the window, is, again, fucking Italians, right? Goddamn Italians. We strike yet again. The Caproni was an Italian heavy bomber in the World War I era. Get a look at this guy. Get a look at this. I think it's got 3 fucking wings. There's like another one on top of that. Unless I'm fucking high out of my mind. 3-engined biplane. Yeah, no, not 3 wings. 3 engines. 3-engine biplane, right? And this thing was an actual bomber. It's the first, understanding of a bomber that we know, where it's designed to drop a fucking payload, right? So now, as, you know, no, this is only 1915, right? We're talking about 6 years from the time that the plane is even usable. By the time it's usable, it takes 6 years for humanity to just start fucking dropping bombs out of it and creating different methods of raining hellfire down from the sky, right? Now, we got a lot of links to go through, but the next thing that starts to change the course of aerial combat is synchronization gear, right? So synchronization gear is essentially, it's also known as interrupter gear, as you see, but it enables for you to be able to shoot either in between the propeller blades or for the propeller blades to be synchronized with the firing of the machine gun. Now, why would you need that? Well, if you shoot your own fucking propeller off, you're going to go barreling down into the ground and everyone's going to fucking die, right? So the early experimentation on this began in like 1913 and 1914. And as soon as the synchronization gear was adopted by all these different militaries, right, and different air forces, suddenly dogfighting became a real thing, like maneuvering and being able to get to the kill shot, you know, maneuvering behind your opponent, because now that you can fire dead ahead at a fast fire rate without the risk of shooting off your own propeller, now air superiority can be challenged, right? Whoever's got the better pilots is going to start winning these conflicts. And that's when you start to see the rise of these ace pilots like Manfred von Richthofen for the Germans, who was a young fucking guy, pretty handsome guy, but Manfred von Richthofen, who was also known as the Red Baron. You probably heard of the Red Baron, right? A German fighter ace. He was the ace of all aces, right? The best pilot of World War I. 80 air combat victories, and he was the leader of the Flying Circus, which was like a fighter squadron, a group of these incredibly talented pilots. But you get Germans like Manfred von Richthofen. You get French pilots like René Paul Fonck, right? You get Americans like Eddie Rickenbacker. Suddenly, this new chapter of warfare has opened up, this new skilled fighter, and that fighter is the pilot, right? Who can use this piece of technology to their advantage? Who can outgun the other man, right? So how many did Rickenbacker get? 28 aerial victories. So think about that. Rickenbacker got 26 aerial victories, and Richthofen got fucking 80. What a leggy. So towards the end of World War I, or like 1917, we start to see the beginning of this understanding of what is called the strategic bombing doctrine, right? Which is this strategy where if you have the ability to launch bombers, right, you're going to use those to destroy the enemy's ability to wage war. Why would you waste your time blowing up the enemy's troops on the front lines, knowing that they need to fuel those troops? They need to be able to give them food. They need to be able to give them ammo. They need fuel. They need all these things. And if you can simply destroy the enemy's ability to keep the war machine going, then you don't even need to be obliterating people's lives, right? And this is what we're seeing, like, in Ukraine and Russia, where they're using drones to target major wartime production facilities, right, rather than actually going after the guys. Now, the thing is, they are going after the guys, but this is what we started to see a lot of, right? Now, it's used to target infrastructure, target civilians in order to damage morale, which we learned in World War II doesn't fucking work. And also, you can use it to support the ground troops, right? So, as we move into World War II, we start to see the advancement of these planes, right? We got the British Supermarine Spitfire. Look at this beautiful fucking piece of machinery. We've got the German Messerschmitt Bf 109, another beautiful fucking piece of machinery. These planes, like, the idea of aerial combat becomes so integral to warfare that he who owns the skies essentially is going to win almost every single battle. Right? Then we've got the American P-51 Mustang, which my grandfather helped fucking create. Look at this beautiful fucking piece of machinery. God damn. Look at that man. He's happy. He's happy to be flying. What the fuck is that? Oh, that's how many kills he's got. Attaboy, 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 attaboy. Well, we got the P-51 Mustang, and now towards the end of World War II, we start to see the inception of these ginormous fucking bombers, right? We've got the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress, right? If you ever seen Masters of the Air, our boys were in these raining down fucking hellfire, right? Then you got the Super Fortress. Look at this big, bad, nasty son of a bitch, right? The Super Fortress was, for example, I'm pretty sure the Enola Gay was, the Super Fortress, the Enola Gay was what carried the nuclear bombs, but we start to see just a massive transition because of the American wartime production sector. Now, this is Boeing, guys. This is Boeing. This is what I've always meant about, like, the military-industrial complex. Wartime really helps these massive companies produce more and more. So always keep that in mind. When people are dying, there's other people who are profiting. But Boeing B-29 Super Fortress. And also we see the beginning of these combat jumps. Our paratroopers. You've all seen fucking Band of Brothers. You've seen our boys who are jumping out with parachutes, right? This is the real, like, change of warfare, where now suddenly you don't just need to bash your fucking head against the enemy over and over again with either naval or ground troops. You can drop troops from fucking behind. You can bomb them from above. You can use planes, right? Everything started to change. And then finally we see a massive shift with the Enola Gay. The Enola Gay is the bomber that we used to drop the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, I don't need to explain to you the level of fucking damage that can be done with an atomic bomb. But now suddenly the world realizes that one plane manned by like 8 men can drop the power of the fucking sun on a city, right? Twice in a week with a third ready to go. I mean, that is a massive shift for humanity, right? Not to mention, this whole time we're working on missiles, right? The V1s and the V2s. The Germans are launching rockets all the way to fucking the UK, right? We've got Americans are working on V2 rockets after World War II, when we start welcoming over Nazis with Operation Paperclip, like Werner von Braun, the head of NASA, right? The guy who made the Saturn V2 rocket. The guy who got us to the moon is also the same guy who made Hitler's rockets. But this is what I mean. The inception, the conquering, man conquering the air, it changed everything, and it created the world that we're living in right now. So then, towards the literal bitter end of World War II, the Germans started to produce the world's first jet engine, right? The Messerschmitt Me-262, or the Schwallow, right? This was the world's first jet, right? And I know it's crazy to see this because you're like, holy shit, what the fuck? Why have I never heard of this? Well, there's some crazy shit that the Nazis created that you just would never fucking hear of, right? But this was the world's first jet plane, right? And the Germans didn't have enough of these to actually turn the tide of the war, but they did deploy them towards the end of the war. And we were like, what the fuck are these things? They're flying fucking 500 miles per hour faster than our boys, right? So now we start to move into the Cold War era of aviation, right? So we get things like Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star during, like, the Korean and Vietnam War. And you also get the MiG, right? The Russians start to create their own versions of these jet planes. The fucking MiG, look at this, And as time goes on, we get into the Vietnam War, right? A little bit after that, and we get these B-52 Strato Fortresses. This is like a nuclear bomber. It's capable of carrying nuclear bombs and flying through the stratosphere, right? It's like holding a gun to the entire planet with the amount of power that we're talking about on these vehicles, right? Then we start to get things like a combination of fighters and bombers, right? Like this American-made F4 Phantom II. It's a fighter bomber, right? Made by McDonnell Aircraft for the U.S. Navy. I mean, look at the... I don't know if you guys are plane people like me, but I find this shit so fucking interesting how it took us 6,000 years to take off, and then it took us like 60 to get to the fucking moon and to start approaching insane levels of speed, right? Then we got the, in the 1970s, we start to get to this. The fucking F-117, like stealth technology is starting to be discovered, right? These things are capable of dodging all radar, all detection. They're flying so fucking high in the sky that like you need to be having your own respirators and type shit. And then as we enter into like the 1990s, the early 2000s, we enter the modern era. And what happens during the fucking modern era? We take the man out of the plane. We get drones. Y'all seen these. You play Call of Duty. These fucking Predator drones. We start shifting into drones where now we're approaching speeds that are so fast that, yeah, the ship can handle it. The plane can handle it. But the man cannot. The pilots can't fucking operate that. We'll just turn to jelly after like fucking Mach 5. You know what I'm saying? So we start to just create these unmanned drones like the Predator drone. It's an American remotely piloted aircraft built by General Atomics that was used primarily by the United States Air Force, conceived in the early 1990s. So these drones, unmanned vehicles, this shit was conceived in the 1990s, right? And now we start to move into the modern era with our new fucking jets, the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 Lightning II. These are like the most advanced fucking aircraft ever created, right? Twin engine, all-weather, supersonic, stealth fighter aircraft, right? It's designed as an air superiority fighter, but also incorporates ground attack, electronic warfare, signal intelligence capability. Lockheed Martin creates these. Of course they do. I mean, these things are fucking unreal. They're unreal. It's a one-man plane. So here's where we're going to start to scare you a little bit, right? So the maximum speed with our current planes is Mach 2.25, right? And that's because that's as fast as like people can fucking handle. And then same thing with the F-35, 1.6 at high altitude, right? So as we start approaching the future, like right now we're moving at speeds like 2 or 3 Mach, right? As we approach the future era, we are going to start to see things that are called hypersonic aircraft. Now, what is hypersonic aircraft? Well, I'm going to show you. Hypersonic aircraft is a plane that flies at speeds much faster than the speed of sound, right? We're talking about 3,000 miles per hour, which is also 50 miles per minute, okay? If you can attach missiles to something like a hypersonic aircraft, there's no technology that could possibly stop that because these hypersonic jets are undetectable due to the level of speed in which they are traveling, right? So the point of this video, what's the point of the video? What's the point? What's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is that it took humanity 6,000 years to finally take off into the sky. But what does human nature, what do we do with that? Within 5 years, we figure out a way to start slaughtering each other from the air, right? And from 1915 to 2025, that 110-year period, we went from these slow-moving aircraft firing pistols and throwing grenades at 600 feet to hypersonic aircraft that can move at 3,000 miles per hour. Not to mention nuclear-tipped warheads that have the payload to fucking shift Pangea. You know what I'm talking about? Think about that. 6,000 years to take off. 100 to hit hypersonic speed. Now, what does that tell me? That tells me that sometimes humanity moves too fast for its own good. It also tells me that the speed in which we are creating things is faster than the speed in which we are maturing as a species. Technology is moving incredibly fast. And I'm not saying that we need to slow down the speed in which we discover new technology. That's insane. But we may not understand the level of destruction that some of the inventions we are creating are truly capable of. And the thought of a hypersonic missile that uses an autonomous targeting system and is also equipped with nuclear weapons genuinely keeps me up at night. Anyway, thank you for tuning into the rabbit hole. Again, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, donate $7,000 to the channel, get some merch, and use that Ground News description for some money off. Ground News link to get some money off on your Ground News subscription. I love you all. I know this was a fast one, but I love you anyway, and I'll catch you on tomorrow's episode of Valenti VOD. Have a good one.